So instead of doing like an awkward build video where I show you guys like how I'm soldering everything together, I thought I would just kind of pause as I'm doing my FlosStyle build and just kind of show you where I am, some of the choices I've made for components, and how things are going. I reached my first kind of stopping point. This is where I am so far. This is going to be like a budget build, so these are some of my budget parts. I'm using the DYS Samguk, it's glaring, sorry about the glare. The Samguk 2600 kV 2207s, and these are $10 motors, which is really cheap. And I'm using the Anniversary Edition Racerstar 35 amp ESC all-in-one board here. Again, really cheap, only $25. So I've saved with the motors, and with the ESCs, I'm actually saving quite a bit of money, which is great. I did have to. This is the cable that came with the Pyrodrone F4 that I'll be using, and so I swapped out the pinout, or I adjusted the pinout here for this ESC, and it seems to work okay so far. I've done some testing. I also have, as you can see, I have Racewire set up, and I'm not sure what I think about Racewire yet. I have them attached here with double-sided foam tape, which it's not the best. I feel like you do have to isolate the board from the arm, and that's what I had, but it's kind of thick and I don't think it looks that great. I tried to make this as neat as I could. This is my second build, so I'm trying to make it neat, and it's okay so far. But yeah, the Racewire I mostly got to keep the build neat, and also in case I need to swap out one of these cheap motors, or in case I want to upgrade all my motors, should be really easy. I just pop these off, desolder here, put on new motors, bam, 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 done. So that's one of the reasons I did Racewire. So yeah, that's where I am so far. I will jump now to the next step. So I've been fighting with this build a little bit longer and harder than I thought I'd have to, and that's mostly because it's a tighter build than I expected. These 20 millimeter standoffs are pretty short, and I honestly I don't really have the correct hardware to mount the stack here. So these are the smallest standoffs that I have, and as you can see, the tops of these standoffs are almost the same here, so I probably have to snip off the top of these nylon screws here, and I was not able to soft mount the flight controller, even though it came with soft mounting little rubber guys, but I'm not going to be able to put them on there because my stack's too high. So what I need to do is I need some hardware that'll bring these ESCs way down, and this is the shortest I have, so my stack's too tall, kind of. This little guy, this Aomway VTX, was kind of a pain to get in there too. Next time I will try to do that without all this other stuff on there. I'll mount that earlier on, and then I can just solder on the wires to the flight controller and then plug it in, which is pretty nice. I managed to get my receiver up here, and I'll run these up through the top plate like it's kind of designed. Everything so far is working, no smoke. I do need to get my receiver bound. Hopefully that's all wired up. I wired everything up on the opposite side of the flight controller, and then I flipped it over kind of as intended. So again, because it's such a tight stack, I want to keep it clean up here when I put my top plate on. So hopefully my receiver is wired correctly and I can get that all set up. And otherwise, from here I'll be moving on to doing that and getting a basic test hover in. I'll probably do it tomorrow since it was it's getting a little late tonight. Oh yeah, components. So this is a CCD camera from Piroflip. Who cares? From Who Cares, a really cheap CCD camera that works well. This is the Aomway VTX that I got specifically for this build so I can mount it on a 20x20 here. The issue with this being it needs M2 hardware, and I have mostly M3 hardware, so again, hardware issues, stuff that I don't have. So I had to rob some M2 hardware from some of my micros. I only had 3, so this fourth one is not, there's no fourth bolt here in here, but that's okay, it should be fine. And what else? Yeah, Pyrodrone F4, and I think we've talked about everything else, you know, the cheap ESCs and the cheap motors, Racewire. I'm on Spectrum currently, so we'll see how it goes and if I can get this guy up and running. Okay, it is the next day and I finally got my receiver issues figured out. It took me a while last night because my first F4 board, I'm on Spectrum, and there's like some stuff with inverted S-bus. Anyway, long story short, I figured it out, and it's the next day and the sun's about to go down, but I think I'll get a quick test hover in. Here it is. Still a couple issues to figure out. I kind of had to do all the finishing touches I need another battery strap. I don't really have a second one that'll fit these little slots. I'm just going to do a quick test hover, and that is it. Wish I could do more than just a test hover, but that's all we're going to try for today, and then we'll maiden it later on. Well, that went just about perfectly. Test hover success. So next up, we'll do a maiden flight when I can find another day to fly.